Hello and good morning. How are you doing today, Jazz?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Absolutely blessed because I'm getting the opportunity to talk to somebody who changes people's lives.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Likewise.
Embracing what you have done. I mean, we deserve monuments. I mean, wow. Wow. I mean, this is more than just words on a page. This is a piece of art as well as a piece of history.
Oh, thank you so much.
To get in that moment, though, and then to relinquish it to the readers, how did you take steps like that?
I mean, it's really hard for me to let a story go when it's just mine and I've been working on it for so long and it's just me. And I think that it comes down to trusting that your words will find the people who need them the most. And whenever I'm writing something, of course, I'm writing it for me first, and then second thinking about okay, well, who else needs this? And so when it came to Thirsty, my next novel, I was in a place where I was I was struggling with my own addictions, and so I hope that whoever picks up the book, they need it.
Well, see, that's what I like about your writing. It's almost like you're saying that, hey, look, I'm going through this, and I am human enough to say I'm not the only one. And so as you write, you're reaching out to those people.
Yeah, there's this vulnerability that is really, really scary, being an author, but also I find that those are some of my favorite stories, whether it's books or movies, where you can tell just somebody is putting their entire heart on the line. And to me, as a reader, that's what I typically respond the most to. And so I think, especially writing for teenagers and young adults, we owe them that honesty and that vulnerability.
Don't you think that Thirsty seems like it's a page from today? And I hope that when somebody reads it in 25 years, they're going to think the same exact things, like, oh my God, I've seen this in my world.
Yes. I mean, I think it's unfortunately something that's super normalized and very common in our society. It's just drinking, and it just has become I had my first alcoholic drink when I was 15. Yeah. And so I know that I wasn't the only one. When, I was a teenager, it was this forbidden and fun thing. And so I think that teenagers today, are facing some of those same issues. And so I wanted to write about it, but without being super heavy handed or just wagging a finger saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. That never works out well,
Boy, I'd like to be a part of that writing process because, like you said, you write for yourself first and then you have to go back and edit it. So do you go through a fermenting stage or anything like that where you kind of set the book aside and then come back as the reader?
Yes, yeah. Always. I always need a minimum month away from whenever I write something. I set it to the side and I come back and I'm able to really look at it with a fresh point of view. I think that's really necessary because when you're writing and in the thick of it, you're so close and, it's hard to determine what's working, what's not. So I think that distance is always should always be in the writer's toolbox.
Thirsty is one of those books that I think that every generation can read. And the reason why is because you deal with learning how to fit in and you making those decisions, like in the book, the decisions that your parents may not like. Well, in the real world, I mean, it may be a decision that my spouse may not like. I mean, there's so many different things that connect all the stories together.
Yes, absolutely. I think when I was in my mid-20s and I was no longer even living with my parents, but I was facing some of these same issues where I met somebody and I really wanted to be their friend and I really wanted them to like me. And, you think that that's just an issue that teenagers face. I'm like, nope, I think it's across generations, whether it's a boss you're trying to impress or, a romantic interest. I think everybody can relate to that feeling of not being good enough and just trying to prove yourself no matter the cost.
One of the things that you put focus on is teenage drinking. And I grew up in the state of Montana where it was like we could have anything. And the thing is that in my 50s, I went back home to Montana to those places where I think I should have died. And I mean, in the river, Yellowstone River, up on the rims above Billings, and to sit there in that moment and try to figure out why it didn't happen. And I mean, have you done things like that as well?
Oh my goodness, the stories I could tell.
Yeah.
Yes, me and one of my closest friends that I've been friends with since I was in third grade. like used to always take a friendship trip every year, and there were some trips where, you know, we were both like super drunk and making a lot of bad decisions, and you wake up the next morning like, I'm really glad like we're still alive to talk about this. But yeah, it's very you are not the only one, I can assure you.
Do you think that Blake and Ella are true friends, or is it that Blake is just a tough person to kind of like understand what love is?
Oh, I think that, like, I don't like writing one-dimensional characters, and so with Ella, Ella is Blake's long-term girlfriend. Yeah. I think that there is love there. Of course there's love that's tethering them. I think that what happens, I'm interested in exploring, like, what happens when other things kind of overshadow that love. So whether that's, like, Ella's desire to join this sorority, like, kind of overshadowing her love and care for Blake, and vice versa, you know, like instead of having honest conversations with Ella about how Blake is feeling, you know, Blake will often, you know, resort to self-sabotage or something like that. And so that, I definitely think there is love there, but this book is kind of like a reckoning of like, we're at a crossroads. What do we do now?
See, once again, there's that connection with the older adults when you talk about self-sabotage and friends and the connections that people have, because even with the sorority, we may not be in college, but businesses really do want that camaraderie, and they will do these inspiration seminars and things like that to get that sorority or that business together. I mean, everything you've got here for a YA reader, it's going to prepare them for a future where they're going to go, oh my God, I was reading Jazz's book, and this is, oh my God.
Yes. I think even if you were never in, you know, a sorority or fraternity, I think that the method of like kind of breaking you down to build you up is present in a lot of type of dynamics. And so people who haven't even been like involved in Greek life in the traditional college setting will probably understand that concept.
Could you go back to being a teenager again?
Could I?
Yeah.
Would I want to?
Exactly.
Absolutely not. I mean, maybe if I knew what I knew now, I would definitely be like a lot less afraid, like, you know. But then again, it's like, you know, I wouldn't do it over. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't be me. So. At the end of the day, no. I'm good with being 31.
31, man, that's where it all changed for me. All of a sudden I realized, wait a second, my 20s were spent doing everything I wanted to do as a teenager, and then my 30s were mopping up that mess that I had as a 20-year-old.
Yes, absolutely. It's like the minute I turned 30, I'm like, whoa, like this is what I thought of when I'm like, oh, adult problems, not when I was, you know, 21.
Are you hoping that readers will kind of stop and reflect in their own personal lives, even if it's a YA reader or an older woman or male, that they'll sit there and they'll go, okay, this is what I did. There's something I can learn from this because somebody needs to read it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes young adult novels so beautiful and so impactful. Like, I think that, you know, something about like half of YA readership are adults, actually, who are, you know, finding comfort in these stories of like, what I wish I could have done, or how things could have turned out differently, or kind of like seeking the love or acceptance that you didn't get at that age. And so I think I will always be drawn to this age category, and, you know, there's just something so compelling about it as a writer and a reader.
So as that author, I realize that, you know, this is the pivoting moment of Thirsty, is we need to sell it, we need to move the book, but you're always working on something, and that's the invisible part of your story that we don't know.
Yes, I'm always like trying to work on something, and I think that everything that I write, though, will have similar themes about like complicated family or friendship dynamics, and exploring queerness and race and class. So no matter what I write, if anybody has picked up a Jazz Hammonds book, I want them to know kind of like what they're getting into.
God, I would love to read a book from you about how everything, you know, when it comes to, like you were talking about queerness and LGBTQ, is the fact that how it seems like that over the past 6 months to a year, it's all shifted and gone backwards. And it's like, I would love to have a story about how all of a sudden sudden it's like, oh, you mean we won't be able to legally get married, or they're challenging it? Oh my God. Because I mean, you're talking about an emotional change there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, that feels like a horror novel. Like,
oh my God.
And I'm like, I try to write just contemporary, but no, that is our contemporary life. And like, when you look at the news, it's like, oh my goodness, what now?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a flight attendant in my day job, and so like some of the newer stuff that I'm working on is like exploring that industry, but still with like the same undercurrent of exploring like mental health and similarly like addictions and like how you can't outrun your problems. So that's kind of like the direction that I'm hoping to pivot to, in addition to keep writing about teenagers and young adults.
Oh my God, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Jazz. The door's always going to be open for you.
Yay, thank you so much. I would love that.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
You too. You as well. It was such a pleasure chatting with you.